Good morning, church. Here's my simple spiritual story for today. Molly Watkins dances in the street of my hometown of Alameda. It's part of his spiritual practice. Sometimes he does it 3 or 4 times a day for himself and as a gift to anyone walking by and frankly to the world. These aren't his words, but with his dance, he's giving out energy and peace to all people. He's not mentally ill, though he has struggled like all of us have from time to time. He is a dark-skinned black man with a diagnosis of autism, high functioning. Make that extremely high functioning on a higher plane than most of the people I have ever met. I only know about Molly because one day in May, 2 days before George Floyd was killed, someone saw him dancing and called the cops on him, concerned trolling that he would get hit by a car because he was in the street. 4 cop cars showed up. When he expressed dismay at their questions and he tried to back away and go home, they grabbed him, they wrestled him to the ground, they cuffed him and arrested him. They broke his front tooth in the struggle. Neighbors called from the sidelines for the police to stop, but they doubled down on the need to dominate his body to ascertain his well-being. One officer told the neighbors captured on the body cam, "We can only evaluate his mental health once he is under control." That arrest spawned angry phone calls, street protests, and evolved into several dance parties in the street. One Molly became many. I was vaguely aware of all of this happening at the time, but became a character in the story when a couple of weeks ago, my friend who's the UCC pastor here in Alameda hosted an outdoor dancing in the streets event at her church. A local t-shirt maker had joined forces with a millennial marketing director to give away t-shirts like this one that I'm wearing right now. Carmen and I went to support my friend, and Molly was there, hosting and greeting and befriending everyone. He was the life of the party. My friend called him over to introduce us, and I said, "It's always nice to meet another Molly." And we ended up talking about God and Black lives and the pandemic and everything that is being revealed. We talked for about half an hour. He did most of the talking, and his words were sermonic, lucid, moving, fluid. And to be honest, I really can't remember anything he said because I didn't write it down, but I remember how he made me feel. I knew I was in the presence of someone anointed by God. His deep, liquid eyes poured love on us. His presence was a balm. I felt baptized by his being. I told him how gravely sorry I was that he had suffered in this way at the hands of the police, the low-key and sometimes high-key racism still present in the soil and water of Alameda. And I do remember what he said to that. He said, no, it all happened just like it was supposed to. It needed to happen in order for everything else to happen. I was stunned by his statement. It's dangerous to say that God brings good out of our suffering. Some of us have spent years unbelieving in a God who demands suffering, particularly, it seems, the suffering of already vulnerable people. But Molly reminded me of something. We each get to decide for ourselves if our personal suffering has a holy purpose. We don't get to decide about the suffering of others, but our own. Yes, and there is empowerment in that. In a minute, I'm going to read the scripture about a man who was sorely used by his own brothers and frankly by law enforcement, and yet somehow good came of it, and he got to decide that his suffering and loss were for a great-hearted and godly purpose, for his own good and the good of others, and his forgiveness is beautiful. His name is Joseph. And Molly's forgiveness is beautiful. He went on to tell us about a piece of that larger purpose that his suffering brought about. You see, every day for months before he was arrested. As he was dancing, a man would drive by. And this man was a city employee, a public servant in uniform, and yet even in his role and in his authority, he had the audacity, the vulgarity to call Mali the N-word. After Mali's arrest, the news and the video going viral, that man sought him out. And when he found him, he begged his forgiveness. And they fell onto each other's necks, weeping. Mali told us, keep dancing.